Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Pod.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster here on the Nerd Party. To be precise, episode 300. So I guess you could say that this is Filibuster. On today's episode, we take a look back on the year that was 2021. Safe to say that there's a bit of deja vu with a new COVID variant arriving in December to disrupt Christmas plans, but despite a rather Scrooge-like outlook last week, cinemas are still open and doing gangbusters. I'm your co-host Dallas King, and with me as always is the Omicron to my Delta, it's Lee Hutchison. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. I couldn't help but feel like a bit of a moron. I think our whole most recent last episode was like, if you get the chance to go to the cinema, go now. It won't be open in the new year. And then, like, I think a few hours later, they made the announcement. It was like, yeah, cinemas are open. It's like, oh God, we look like total idiots. And it was too late. It was already edited. I couldn't cut it out.
I know. I think we were just going by with our experience of what the governments have done so far, and that they normally were extra cautious, but I think they just decided, just get on with it now. So I know that certainly in Scotland there's an extra space. You've got an empty seat in between bookings, but that's about as far as it's gone. So you'll have a bit more socially distant screenings in Scotland, but otherwise everything is still open. People are going to see movies. One certain movie has managed to do what I didn't think was going to be able to be done for a very long time, but I'll get onto that later on. So how this episode's going to work is I've created a few categories to kickstart some discussion before we end in our top 10 films of the year. What we're going to do is we'll list our 6 to 10 films, and then we'll take it in turns to go through our top 5s. So first off, we're going to do top 10 films, but let's start off with perhaps the best TV, limited series, or non-film thing that we have watched this year. Lee, what was your top pick?
Yeah, I've gone with a couple because my obvious thing would be Succession Season 3, which I just absolutely loved. And
still haven't watched any of it.
when you do, we will 100% do an episode on it.
Oh, actually, I've got Now TV now.
There you go.
It must.
And you've got like a week off work.
There we go.
You're
Boom.
sorted.
It's worked out.
I love the first 2 seasons of Succession, and it's been almost a 2-year wait to get the third season due to sort of COVID delays and sort of their bog standard season delays. But it's one of those ones. I know there's the tired conversation about the Netflix model of drop it all at once, or the weekly model that seems to be coming back a little bit into fashion. For me, that's still the best way to watch a TV show, because I like the suspense that, I find it sometimes that, at the moment, both me and my dad are watching the new season of Dexter. I mean, it's not a great show by any stretch of the imagination, but it's quite fun each week just going, oh, so what did you think of this week's episode, etc. And I always find that when you have conversations about shows that all drop at once, you can't help but sort of go, but have you watched it yet, for example? And the conversations can be a little bit stilted. There's sometimes, I think it's resulted in me not watching as much TV as I probably used to, for example, because if it was all spaced out a little bit, I could watch some things on a Monday, maybe some things on a Wednesday. I kind of wake up on a Friday and go, oh, I don't have time to watch 10 episodes of, the new Netflix series. Yeah, Squid Game, haven't watched it. Whereas something like that, I can go, that's going to be my Monday night little ritual. Something like Succession, I watched before I started work in the morning. And it gives you a bit of time to sort of dive into people's articles, look at the AV Club, hear hypothesis for kind of the next episode. That's things I still really enjoy and appreciate, and it gives you a chance to sort of think about where the season's going and the arc, and it becomes a sort of quite a shared experience. Whereas when things drop at once, it's very much for the hardcore fans, those sorts of early conversations, and then everyone else just kind of plays catch up eventually. So Succession Season 3, as well as being a great series of television, just tapped into something like that, and it felt exciting to wake up on a Monday morning thinking, right, new episode of Succession this week, where's it kind of going to go? So, you know, I'm not going to make any too much comments on it because I know you'll end up seeing it, but I also want to give a shout out to, you know, one of the best things I've listened to this year, which is Self Esteem's Prioritize Pleasure album. So yeah, it was one of those ones when I got my Spotify stats a few weeks ago on the Spotify rap season. It was no surprise that it was my most listened to album, song, artist of the year. I think she just really tapped into something a lot of people were going through, and while it's an incredibly personal album, I think a lot of us can sort of listen to it and go, yep, I can see a bit of me in that, or that reminds me of a person I know, or that reminds me of a feeling I went through, or something I want to get out of life. And I just thought it was just the perfect album. And yeah, I got the chance to hear it live a couple of months ago, which was just fantastic. So yeah, I'm hoping for more live music and getting the chance to see her again in March next year, touch wood.
Yeah, was there a book released with it as well?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, it was a really good book. I haven't had a chance to dive into it. It's on my huge pile. It's just got bigger even after Christmas. Where
my wife saw that on your Instagram and thought, "Oh, Lee's reading a book about self-esteem," and I went, "I'm pretty sure that's a band, actually." So
yeah, it's one of those ones like if you follow her on Instagram, which I would highly recommend, she will sometimes use sort of the notepad function on sort of her iPhone to sort of like do little poems or really interesting lyrics. So yeah, that's definitely something. So yeah, and self-esteem, it's one of those things, like she said it herself, it's almost become sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy that sort of her music, etc., was about making her, you know, boost her self-esteem. And I think a lot of people can get that from her music and perhaps her book as well, where, you know, it might be on paper, it is a self-help book or a boosting people's self-esteem. So yeah, it definitely works on two levels. So we'll give Lucy a pass on that correction as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm totally with you. Even though I haven't seen Succession, I'm totally with you on the I guess traditional, just how TV used to be with weekly episodes dropping. I know that there was a big shift towards that with towards the end of last year on Disney Plus, of all things, who managed to keep the weekly model going with first The Mandalorian, but then all the Marvel series such as WandaVision. Even Hawkeye, this year they dropped them, so you get that. So it just keeps the discussion, I guess, going longer and keeps engagement going longer. Whereas something like Squid Game, which did drop all at once, there was this huge thing about it, where obviously I think the main controversy was that it was, you know, adults playing children's school games, and then at the end, anyone who, you know, lost the game was killed. And then there was lots of people complaining that the kids were playing these games at school, and it's like, but they're playing the games that they would normally play at school, aren't they? I mean, as long as the kids, I'm assuming, aren't killing each other at the end of the games, surely that's all fine. And, you know, they're actually, you know, getting outside and getting some exercise surely would be a good thing. But I mean, I know that people have been very high on Succession, but I did find it amusing that, you know, over here in the UK, you know, we got Bond a week early. You know, Bond actually is a film which, for the most part, I actually haven't seen much discussion online about the ending. You know, over here we were able to keep secrets from, you know, Marvel films, which we saw for a couple of days. However, it seems that Succession fans were pretty much dropping memes, spoilers, etc., within minutes of it going online. And I'm guessing they were maybe the same type of people who were watching Game of Thrones, because people normally say, you know, if the film comes out on the Friday, you know, at least wait until the Monday before, you know, you start dropping heavy spoiler bots into Twitter. But it seemed like it was just fair game for anyone watching it in the States that, you know, I mean, how did you manage to cope? Did you have to basically stay off social media until Monday night to catch up with it? Or
it was one of those ones, I think, like would come out at sort of the early hours of sort of Monday morning here, and then the joy of something like Now TV is that you can have it live potentially on Sky at like 9 p.m. at night on, like, say, Sky Atlantic, but they'll just have it up like first thing in the morning for you. So it's one of those things, like, I just immediately just dived in over breakfast. I was like, you know what, some people will spoil it, there'll be an offhand comment. So it was one of those ones, like, I've you know, I always try and avoid posting spoilers or anything like that, but you always just kind of take it that going onto Twitter in the wild, wild west that it is, that you just run the risk of it. So it's just one of those ones like over breakfast, or sometimes maybe just like when I'm checking my work emails in the morning, just having the last stretch of the episode on, depending how quick I've got up in the morning. So at least it's done and dusted and out of the way, and then sort of maybe sometimes in the evening I'll just rewatch it again. So yeah, that is just taking it into my own hands, I think.
Yeah, guaranteed the people spoiling Succession were the same ones complaining that, you know, oh, what are you doing? I haven't been able to see Spider-Man No Way Home yet. Why are you ruining it for me? And it's like, yeah, no self-awareness. But for me, my top pick is something which I think is potentially, you know, on a lot of year-end lists going to be the Twin Peaks: The Return of 2021, and that is Bo Burnham Inside, which I have seen a few people list as one of their top 10 films of the year. And is it a film? I don't know. It was on Netflix. It did get a very limited cinematic release in the States, not over here. But, you know, as a series of sketches and songs edited together, it maybe does have a slight overarching narrative. But is it a film? I don't know. So that's why I put it here. But Bo Burnham Inside was, I mean, I think he sort of teased about 2 weeks in advance that something was coming. Was it going to be a return to stand-up? And it turned out it wasn't, because obviously, you know, he was stuck inside during lockdown, and he managed to create something which I think most people agreed was one of the best things that they watched in 2021. So I had to mention it here. And, you know, I don't think I've laughed as much something since, you know, White Woman's Instagram. But also the Welcome to the Internet song is incredibly dark but incredibly spot on. And just overall, I mean, it's an incredibly dark, uplifting, impersonal, you know, piece of work. I think it kind of reminds me of Ben Wyatt in Parks and Recreation when he gets fired and he starts making claymation models. It's like, could a depressed person do this? And, you know, obviously Bo Burnham is very, you know, in his stand-up and stuff like that, he is very aware of what he's doing and stuff like that. So is he really as depressed as he is, or is he using the idea that everyone is depressed during lockdown in order to make a better film? Potentially, but it totally worked for me. What about you?
I really liked it too, and I must admit I was slightly stunned that it was this year.
I know, yeah.
It was that moment. I think there's so much of films where, even with my top 10 later on, I was like, did I see that last year or was that this year? Just like time is lost. But yeah, I've only watched it the one time, but I loved it. And again, you know, it was one of those ones that I think this is sometimes the benefits of a Netflix model, where something like that just drops all around the world at one time, and because it's kind of a single thing, people are quite easy to dive into something like that. And I think, you know, it did so well on its first day, and then you just start to see people kind of recommending it and the praise. And yeah, I thought it was lovely. I think I would class it as a movie myself, and so on. You know, whether we call it a TV movie potentially might be the needle to thread there, but yeah, I thought it was really good, and some of those songs are fantastic. And I think, you know, like say Self-Esteem, for example, I think there was a lot of people that could pick out a song going, ooh, that's my COVID experience, kind of nailed there. And I thought it was wonderful. And, you know, I know there was some sneering, for example, of like, you know, someone like Bo Burnham, you know, was able to do this with his lockdown and, you know, encourage people to maybe sort of, you know, tap into their creative things. And I know there was pushback of like, well, he's got loads of money and he had all this like equipment, etc. But, you know, it's not about that sometimes. You can see it where some people can just create art out of something very simple. And I think the message of that is that, you know, from adversity or going through tough times or whatever, if you've got that ability to make something, whether it's written, filmed, created, you know, I know I even sneer at it sometimes, you know, even if it's a TikTok dance or a little mini video that you can make on your iPhone, there's so many ways to be creative and to make content. And it isn't about sometimes being having access to certain equipment or being an Emmy Award winning director with a Netflix deal. People could make their own version of Bo Burnham Inside, and, you know, I'd certainly be interested to see most of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, no, there was a huge thing during the first lockdown that, you know, people were meant to be doing something, whether it was creating something or starting their own business or whatever, and then people saying, "Oh, well, it was my first lockdown. I'll get right. Next lockdown, I'll be much better at doing something and stuff like that." But I think, yeah, I mean, for me, it was in terms of cinematography and editing, it was probably better than a lot of the films which were out in the last couple of years. I mean, if it had been nominated for Oscars, I think it potentially could have easily been in those categories. I guess Emmy wise, we'll have to wait and see what happens with it there. But yeah, no, it was just an incredible piece of art. We'll call it that. Film, TV, I don't know. It burns the boundaries. But yeah, in terms of art, it was just utterly fantastic. And I can't remember where I heard it, but I believe I heard a rumor that it was actually filmed in the house that was featured in Nightmare on Elm Street. Probably an extension of it, but still, that was a bit of a fun trivia fact, which I don't know if I've just made up. I don't know why I would make that up. It's a very random thing to make up.
I'm going to text Kim right now to find out.
Yeah, find out. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's come to your biggest disappointment of 2021.
So it was one of my most anticipated ones of 2021, and that was Don't Look Up. So a few weeks ago, I was really frustrated. I was looking forward to it. I expected it to be on at some of the independent cinemas here in Edinburgh, but they chose to show Lost Daughter instead. I know Glasgow and Aberdeen had it. I know you got the chance to see it in the cinema, so I was kind of like, oh, I really do like Adam McKay movies. I know there's been a bit of kind of discourse about his recent two movies, before even this one come along, in terms of The Big Short and Vice, and heck, I liked the other guys and Step Brothers. So yeah, I was really looking forward to this one. I like his brand of sort of comedy or a take on the world. I think Big Short has one of those movies that's really kind of stood the test of time the past few years, and people seem to constantly be finding it. I remembered when there was that whole Reddit thing about buying game stock and so on, like people were kind of like using this movie as a reference point about getting your head around it. I think Vice,
just get Margot Robbie in a bathtub to explain it, and we'll all be fine.
and just even people kind of talking about when it came to Vice, I know it did get nominated for some Academy Awards and such like, but it seemed to be sort of quite an overlooked film. So I was kind of going into this movie really looking forward to it. I like sci-fi, I like a lot of the cast, so I felt like, here we go, this is going to be very tailor-made for me, and it ended up just being truly disappointing for me. I mean, it's an okay movie, and it seems to have been very popular in terms of viewing hours, if we go by the Netflix model, over the kind of Christmas break. But
first 2 minutes of it, that's all Netflix needs to count it.
Yeah, and it just proved to be disappointing, really. It was one of those ones, like, I liked the basic plot of, like, what happens if an asteroid was coming to Earth, and we sort of try and go by how people would really react. Like, we've all seen our Deep Impacts, Armageddons, etc. They've almost become kind of parodies. But I was kind of like, I was into the central premise, and I think the first 15-20 minutes until they sort of get to the White House captures that pretty well. And then I know the point that they're trying to make is that, about whether it's politics, celebrity, news, the public, the internet, memes, whatever, like, we've all seen that kind of play out over sort of COVID periods of time, Trump, etc. But when I just watched this, I thought it just wasn't done in a very innovative or smart way. You watched it and you thought, I want to see how people would potentially react, but this feels just stupid. It was like almost shooting fish in a barrel, and it didn't come across as very smart or very nuanced. It just came across as a pretty dumb movie. It kind of came across as the stupid brother of something like Melancholia.
You wouldn't have read my review because it was posted a couple of weeks ago, and you're holding off. But yeah, I know I gave it 2 stars. I thought it had its moments. Like you say, the central premise is interesting. It's just about 2 hours and 25. It's incredibly overlong and flaccid, and there's too much going on. It's like there's so many targets it's trying to hit. It's like maybe stick to one, whether it's the presidential and the politics, or if it's the media, something like that. But I mean, I thought the performances across the board were good. It just didn't work overall. It was just too too overlong, and it was just a bit of a mess over all those funny moments. I think it maybe has a shot at one Oscar of maybe just the Just Look Up song by Ariana Grande. That's probably about it. But I just find it more interesting in the fact that if we look back at even like the time of like Armageddon and even like mid-90s, where you had movies like Independence Day and Air Force One or whatever, where the presidents are heroes and action men and stuff like that, and we'll do whatever we can to save the world. There's an asteroid company, fine, we'll blow it up. We'll send oil riggers up trained as astronauts rather than training astronauts as oil riggers. Because Ben Affleck makes that case on the wonderful audio commentary of Armageddon. If you never listened to it, it's a high recommendation. But yeah, it's just interesting to see that basically it's just with the current level of governments and politics around the world that everyone is just basically giving up, and it's like, well, we're all going to die. It's like there's no hope at the moment. And I mean, yeah, it's a point that kind of gets hammered home a bit too heavily in the film, but I enjoyed moments, but overall it was a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah. Oh well. It's one of those things. I look forward to whatever he does next. So I'm going to put this down as a misfire. But God, I'm almost close to muting. Look up on Twitter just now because Jesus Christ, even that discourse is more chronic than the film itself.
Well, for me, disappointments of the year were my disappointed myself for once again not using Letterboxd properly, which I can tell you definitely regret when it gets to December and you're like, what did I see? What haven't I seen? Why don't I log these films straight away? Grr. So yeah, I will definitely have to make a New Year's resolution to use it next year properly. At this point, not getting to Cannes. Thank you, UK government, for letting another variant in at that point, and meaning that travel rules and restrictions changed to the point where I was unable to go. Thanks for that. But for me, film-wise, it would probably be Halloween Kills, because surprisingly, I thought that the Halloween reboot, no, not reboot, sequel / reboot / remake of Halloween 2, where it picked up in 2019, was actually really good. I thought that Michael Myers was a very good, effective killer. I thought looking at sort of the PTSD of not only Jamie Lee Curtis's character, but how it filters down through the generations after that was good. And then this film was just, a mess. It felt like 2 hours of just people shouting, evil dies tonight, Michael Myers is going to die tonight, evil's going to die tonight, when we knew that this was part of a trilogy, and so that evil was not in fact going to die tonight. And yeah, it was just, I mean, we always talk, when we talk about horror films, about, and Scream especially, about people making stupid decisions. The level of idiocy in this film is just, it's just so frustrating. So yeah, no, it was a total mess, and yeah, one of the worst films of the year. And given how strongly I appreciate the 2019 one, yeah, this one was a huge letdown.
Yeah, I have no intention of ever watching this film, so thanks for making sure that's definitely going to be the case. So yeah, huge.
Oh, so yeah, no, we did talk about it at one point of trying to get you to watch all the Halloween films before this one, so that's a no to watching all of them before the final one next year.
I ran the clock down on that one, where it was like, it's getting closer to Halloween. I'm off to the London Film Festival. I managed to filibuster my way out of that one.
Absolutely. Well, you can maybe try it. We've got plenty of time. We've got nearly a year to do it for next time.
Yeah, slow and steady. Here's me talking about, I need to watch episodic stuff. Maybe now with no Succession for another 9 months, I can just watch one Halloween movie a day on a Monday morning.
Exactly. I think if you did that, you might just finish them by the time it gets to October. There's that many of them at the moment, so yeah. So conversely, talking about biggest disappointments, what about the biggest surprises of the year?
I think for me, it's one of those things, I think I'm just really happy that cinemas came back. It was one of those ones that it was easy to be cynical of there's going to be trouble, are we going to have to get used to cinemas closing all the time? I think when was it cinemas came back, about May time, that was a long period of time.
Because I think when we locked down around about exactly this time last year, it was what was it? About, it was meant to be a 3-4 week circuit breaker lockdown, and then it rolled on until May before cinemas were reopened. So yeah, it was unexpectedly another long absence.
Yeah, I remembered. I think the last film I got to see in the cinema was maybe late October or something like that, when I was going through my sort of horror season at the View, catching up on some classic
Yes, there were
movies.
the different tiers, yeah, and I got that 2-day window for Wonder Woman 1984.
It was just really frustrating to kind of go through that period of time, just like no cinemas. And I love the cinema experience and sharing a film, and watching a film that I think is good at home, but then sort of discovering people love it as an audience. And I've seen some really good films with audiences this year, where it was whether it was at London Film Festival, or even something like House of Gucci, where it was watching with a much different crowd and seeing their kind of reactions and getting kind of caught up in it a little bit. The cinema experience, everyone is every year without fail wants to tell you it's dead, or whether it's The Guardian with their very foolish comments about cinemas in the past few months. I mean, I wasn't the greatest fan in the world of it, but it was so good to see something like Spider-Man make that significant amount of money. I know there's a lot of drawbacks to how it got there in a way, but it's a good sign about the health of the cinema. I didn't expect it to make that kind of money this year. I thought a movie will make $1 billion again. That seemed to be the big discussion. I think even you've talked about it. Will it happen again? And
that was one of my surprises of the year, was the fact that not only a film made $1 billion again, but also that it made it in 12 days. I was just utterly shocked that cinema had rebounded so quickly.
And I think the good thing that we'll kind of see now, and it's always that good period in the UK and a little bit in the US, is that in America it's obviously the dumping period where a lot of kind of the dud films or the disappointments go, whereas just now we've got a lot of exciting movies coming up. We were chatting just beforehand, like you can go see Macbeth now in the cinemas. Souvenir Part 2's out on New Year's Day as previews. You've got Licorice Pizza beginning kind of a rollout now. Titane's dropped. There's so many really good and exciting movies that are like, if you were kind of a bit fatigued and bored by Spider-Man dominating the box office, you can go have an indie movie fest to have all that, and that's all there. And I'm excited to sort of go to the films and watch some of these ones again that I caught at the festival circuit earlier this year. So yeah, the state of our nation, the state of the nation is pretty good at the moment, and hopefully there's a bit of stability next year with COVID numbers, and we can have packed indie cinemas again, or we can all go and enjoy all-nighters at the Prince Charles Cinema, or see retro screenings, etc. So I'm glad that we've got them, because everyone just loves to say cinema's dying.
Yes. Yeah, that's probably one of my disappointments of the year, was the anti-cinema rhetoric coming out of The Guardian about, cinema's dying, no one's going to the cinema. And it's like, is that the same cinema that Bond is making record numbers in October? Yeah, okay. I wonder how they're trying to justify cinema being over with $1 billion for Spider-Man. Who knows? Was there any particular film that surprised you this year?
Maybe Annette, to an extent, was maybe a bit of a surprise, where it's a 3 out of 5 movie for me, but it was good to go into that film after sort of having seen the Sparks Brothers documentary and just going, I didn't expect this movie at all, even after having been kind of, given an insight into their mind. And there's some really great bits in that movie. I'd love to have almost go back and interview them again and go, so seriously, what were you thinking with like the Baby Annette puppet, and how that movie's almost made a sort of positive impact. There's so many films we just spoke about, there's discourse, there's terrible takes, whereas people almost seem to be like, how weird was that movie? And like, I think it was someone had made like the Time Person of the Year as Baby Annette, and I think anyone that saw that movie, whether it was on Mubi or in the cinemas, we came away with going, well, it is Baby Annette, this is her first time after all. And it was just so many little things like that.
The Super Bowl, yeah. Well, she is just a baby.
Yeah, I wanted to like the movie a bit more, but I'm glad that a film like that came along and went, that's a surprise. I don't think many people anticipated that kind of movie, or Baby Annette being perhaps the star of 2021.
Yeah, I think with a movie like that, it's clearly a very odd film, directed by Leo Carax, music written by Sparks. Having seen, of course, like you say, having seen the Sparks documentary, it's like, okay, I totally get it now, where it's sort of going, stuff like that. But I think it was the commitment to it. It went, this is the film we're making, and we're going to do it our way. And yeah, it's all worked. I mean, for me, surprise wise, while I had completely guessed from the first scene and opening credit sequence of *Malignant* what the twist was going to be, I have to applaud the commitment to the reveal and final act of that film, which was just utterly insane, and I loved it for it. I know that's a film which was basically a lot of 1-star, 5-star sort of, or even a 3-star. I think Matthew Turner gave it 3 stars, as in 1 star for the first half, 5 stars for the second half. So that kind of thing, I thought that was great. One particular line of dialogue towards the end of Wild Mountain Thyme, which was just like, what? Okay. But for me, surprise wise for film, it would probably be The Last Duel, actually, which was a film which I wasn't particularly excited about. Even though, it's got a fantastic cast, Ridley Scott directing, it just wasn't really doing anything for me from the description and stuff like that. But when I went to see it, I totally bought into what it was doing with its Rashomon style, telling a very specific event from the viewpoint of everybody involved. I think Ben Affleck delivered one of the supporting performances of the year. He's acting in a completely different film, but somehow it works. And yeah, it was just a really, really, it took me by surprise about how much I really appreciated that film. So yeah, that was on for me. So in terms of, okay, I've got one of the things, which is what you were thankful for in 2021. I guess that sort of ties into the fact that cinemas reopened. I mean, for me, it was a return of in-person film festivals. I only really got to one, which was Sundance London, but I think that was pretty much my only holiday for the year this year. So just a weekend of being able to go watch films, but then also get involved in the red carpets, the interviews, the just seeing films, talking about films with people, attending the party at the end of it, which people thought was going to be a huge COVID spreader, but thankfully wasn't, unlike the London Film Festival. But yeah, no, I mean, that for me was one of my highlights of the year, and something that I was very thankful that we could get back. Fingers crossed, Glasgow in a couple of months we'll be able to do a full in-person event. But if it has to drop back to a hybrid model, then I guess we'll do that as well. But yeah, that for me. What about yourself?
Well, that's kind of my most anticipated thing for 2022 is film festivals with friends, where I that's what I've truly missed. I mean, I was at London Film Festival and it was good, and there was a couple of us there, but it's never the same as like when you've got that a good group of friends that are all there, and
all queuing at 6 o'clock in the morning when you really don't have to,
and chatting between movies, and like hearing recommendations or being taken out of what you're zero focused in on. It's like, I miss that thing, and festivals are all great, but it's all about those shared experiences. I think it's something like, say, Uncut Gems, where we saw that together as a surprise movie, and I went to the surprise movie this year, and when I heard it, I was like, oh great, fantastic. But there was something about that where like you've got that energy of someone where you're like, yes, we're going to watch this film together and we can talk about it afterwards. And that's what festivals are all about. I know people say, oh, you get the chance to see these films early, and that's the thing, but for me it's always about like getting to the chance to see these films with friends and so on. And that's often what I come away from films, thinking about going, I had a great time with that film, or I love this film, but then I asked my friend behind me what they thought of it, and they thought it was terrible, and that was a fun discussion. Or going to red carpet events where you're sort of you're sharing that nervous energy of like, what are you going to ask, if it comes down to it, who do you want to interview, or do you think we're going to get something? Or when you all pull together and go, you know what, we weren't able to get someone, but hey, I got someone, and you sort of share around sort of some of your audio files and stuff like that. I mean, I just hope there's something like that in 2022, because it's just not the same watching it on laptops or with people that can't travel to. So yeah, that's my big hope for 2022. Hopefully we can enjoy an A24 film or some surprise movie about drag racing up in the northeast of Scotland together next year.
Absolutely. So yeah, fingers crossed. the 3-week circuit breaker lockdown is just 3 weeks, and we're able to get down to Glasgow. Although they have announced that they will be doing gala screenings across the country. So I think Filmhouse and Belmont are on the list. So we don't have to make as many trips along. Might miss out on the opening party though. So it depends what they've got. I'm hoping for the Nicolas Cage film, and I think you were thinking Red Rocket might be a shout for that as well. So I guess we'll just have to see. But for me, I certainly hope that either Cannes or Venice would be on the cards in terms of international film festivals. It'll depend on the travel restrictions, of course, the amount of and cost of any sort of extra PCR tests, etc. But yeah, no, I think hopefully we're on the up and up. I know that Sundance is coming up. I'm accredited to watch it virtually, but I know they have just included extra restrictions in terms of COVID passports and boosters and stuff for those attending in person, which is putting a wee bit of an extra hurdle for people attending. But hopefully by the summer, things will hopefully be a bit more back to normal, and we'll just have to see how it goes. But yeah, for me, most anticipated of 2022 is, and perhaps part of me is quite sad to say that it's a superhero film, but it is a superhero film by the director of one of the most underrated trilogies of the last decade, the Planet of the Apes films, and that's Matt Reeves' The Batman, starring A24. So we call him the A24. A24 is Robert Pattinson. If the teaser trailer and the first full trailer hadn't done enough to whet your appetite, they dropped just yesterday The Cat and the Bat, which makes it look utterly fantastic. And yeah, I think for me, I'm very excited to see where this incarnation of the Batman may go. But it's supposed to be a more gothy, grungy version, apparently inspired by Kurt Cobain, to which someone point spoilers for the end. But I guess we'll have to see. I mean, is it cliche choice to say the Batman is the most anticipated film of 2022? I don't know.
It's impossible not to be excited about that. I mean, I've definitely got superhero fatigue, but I'm finding it hard to not be excited and pumped for a Robert
He's
Pattinson
our boy,
Batman.
isn't he?
Yeah,
He's
exactly. I want to
boy.
see him do good. I mean, the trailer didn't blow me away last night like it did a lot of people. I thought it was kind of, part of me was watching going, I wish we could see Batman doing some detective stuff, but I think it'll be an interesting take. And, Paul Dano as the Riddler has got me very, very excited. So, I think that's going to be the main selling point for me. So, yeah, as much as I'm kind of like, I would maybe prefer a slightly different take on Batman, it's impossible not to be excited for a new Batman movie. He is my favourite superhero, the one I grew up with. So, yeah, I'll always be in the back for it.
Yeah, because I'm sure that I did a tweet, and I'm going to try and find it here, about what I wanted from a new Batman film. And this was, I think, when they kind of announced it, but hadn't really talked about plot-wise. And I'm pretty sure that I kind of nearly pretty much accurately did there. I think they're going to give me what I wanted, pretty much in terms of, I'm pretty sure I've asked to be a more of a sort of detective story, where the Riddler was potentially like a serial killer leaving clues, and Batman had to solve the clues in order to save the victims and stuff like that. So hopefully that's indeed what we'll get. It certainly looks more, yes. Here it is, yes. August 2020. I've always wanted a version of the Riddler who acted like a serial killer, taunting Batman with clues to the next victim kind of thing. And yeah, looks like Batman may deliver in spades with 7 type vibes. So yeah, that's what we're going to get by the looks of it. So hopefully it plays out. And it comes out the day before my birthday. So birthday treat for me. It's opening day of released the same day as the opening of the Glasgow Film Festival. So I guess it probably means it's not the opening film of the Glasgow Film Festival. What it could be, I guess we'll have to find out.
Yeah, it would be a fitting choice with it somehow being filmed in Glasgow too.
Exactly, yeah, there'll be a lot going on with that. Yes, we'll be in Glasgow for the festival, going past the Gregs, which features in every film features in Glasgow. So now, one of the last categories before we get to the big one, and I'm asking you for your favourite interview of 2021. Now, you've been interviewing lots, despite the lockdown and stuff like that. You've still been able to get onto Zoom and interview a lot of people. who've been your highlights of this year?
It's one of those ones. So I thought deep about this one. Like, I've not done as much for Filibuster sort of since the A24 project came along. That's become the main focus of like getting guests for that. Especially in the past 2 years, we've had barely any A24 movies. So we always wanted to kind of keep that ticking over, and we've got a lot out there. So I'm going to go strictly for ones that we've had on this podcast, where I know it was only brief, but the fact that we got Edgar Wright on our podcast is pretty awesome. I loved when we had Prano Bailey Bond on together. Like, it was just really good to chat with her and to hear, like, to be in the room when you went down the rabbit hole with her. Like, that was one of my highlights. That's why I love going to film festivals with people. Getting to share that moment was fantastic. For me, I loved when we got the chance to chat with Janica Bravo. That was what was really good. She is such a great guest, and I would love to just have like a long sit down with her. And we've had a couple of Zola interviews, and I've just heard like great stories about what she's like on set. So yeah, I think I would have to probably pick Prano Bailey Bond, and yeah, that was a pretty special one.
I might have a very similar answer. I did have a sort of like a top three. I think Janica Bravo was great because it was the first time I think that we'd actually had an interview with someone who worked on an A24 film before we actually did the episode on the A24 film. So it was a nice experience to let the interview we had with her actually guide us in the discussion of the film. And that episode is available to download and listen to on the A24 project. In terms of interview-wise, I wouldn't really call it an interview, but I really enjoyed, and I'm sorry you missed out on this, but I enjoyed the A24 project episode of Come On that we did with Billy Melissa. I thought she was a fantastic guest host, and it was just a really great discussion about that film and what she loved. I mean, I think it's her favourite film of the year, and it really came across in that one. So listen to that one as well. But yeah, no, my favourite interview would have to be Prano Bailey Bond that we did at Sundance London. I think I'd said as soon as I saw Censor at Sundance London, I was emailing trying to find out when I could get an interview. I just had so much stuff to want to do, and like you say, it got quite specific in terms of stuff that I was asking. But I thought she was great in the way that she took on my unique perspective of where the film might have gone. It may not have been what she intended, but I like the fact that she was open to the interpretation that her ambiguous ending allowed. So yeah, that episode, we did an entire episode on Censor, and you can listen to her interview, and we got Niamh Algar on the red carpet for that as well. And also you can listen to all the Sundance London interviews on a special episode as well on Filibuster. Just go back through the list and find that one there. So that brings us to top 10 films of 2021. And once again, I think I have to roll back on my rather stringent rules of it should be released in the UK between the 1st of January 2021 and 31st of December 2021, because obviously cinemas were closed in the UK, were closed for 5 months of that, and yeah, it just makes it a lot more difficult. I kind of did have to go and listen to our episode at this time last year just to double check what I had mentioned in my top 10 that year, because I think Sound of Metal was one which we had seen, but we were both saying that we really wanted to see it in the cinema again due to the sound breaks and stuff like that. So I hadn't placed it in my top 10 at that point. So yeah, let's go to you first and take us up from 10 to 6.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same as you. Like, I had to go back and think, right, what did I actually see last year that...
Because, I discounted anything that you'd put in the previous, so you weren't allowed to like use like I think there was 1 year you weren't allowed to use like Uncut Gems and Portrait of a Lady on Fire and stuff. I think you handicapped slightly by that one.
Yeah, so things like I got the chance to see things like Sound of Metal last year. Our Ladies, which finally came out this year, was a 2019
did that
top
one
hit
actually
for
come
me.
out this year? Oh yeah, so it did.
Yeah, so it's just like things like that. Minari got to see last year. First Cow got to see like May last year. So there was a lot of films that almost didn't kind of make the cut. So yeah, this is been one where, I think the last big film of the year I had to watch last night was Benedetta. I rented that from iTunes for a few bucks because I missed that one at London Film Festival. But my my top 10 would be In the Earth, would be directed by Ben Wheatley. So it's about a virus that ravages the world, and these people go into the forest and meet some mad scientists. And a fantastic movie. And I think you saw this one perhaps at Sundance, but God, this was why the cinema experience just blew my mind. Like, I can imagine watching that at home and going, "Oh, that's fine." And I remember
I had that. That was me. I was like, yeah, it's fine. But I think, the Clint Mansell score and the sound mix and some of the visuals, I think you would have got a completely different experience in the cinema.
And you watch it where you could almost go on to see something like Letterboxd and see the people that saw it at a festival on a screener and those who saw it in the cinema, and there was a huge divide. So In the Earth would definitely be in my top 10. Promising Young Woman, which I Promising Young Woman, which I swore on my life I saw that last year, but I realised that was obviously for some people at Glasgow Film Festival. But I'm sure I saw a screener last year, but no, I saw it in the first week of January. So yeah, about a young woman haunted by her sort of a tragedy in her past, decides to take revenge on predatory men. So yeah, I was stunned by that one.
I'm gonna have to amend my list.
Yeah, as soon as I heard the paper rustle there in the background, I knew you were in trouble. Movies.
That's because I saw it in Glasgow like in 2020.
Movies Sweat for me. So it was all about an online fitness motivator whose kind of social media presence made her a sort of celebrity. God, that film was really tough and uncomfortable to watch. And the universal message, especially with lockdown, of a lot of us have had to live our lives through the online world instead of kind of making proper connections. I thought this film had all the awkwardness that I love in a movie. It was uncomfortable at points. It was really tough. Yeah, this is a film I'm really keen to watch again, and one that seems to just be sort of having flown under the radar a little bit. And then sort of at 7, I've gone with The Beta Test, so Jim Cummings and PG McCabe. So Jim Cummings is becoming one of my go-to favourite actors. I just love how he is as a performer. He just gets you like cringing in your seat. You feel amused, you feel a bit disturbed at times. And in this, he plays sort of a Hollywood agent who receives sort of like this mysterious letter that says, "Come along for an anonymous sexual encounter," and then everything all goes wrong from there. So has a lot to say about sort of like the cinema and the Hollywood and kind of cinema industry, but that performance from Jim Cummings is fantastic, and I would have loved to have seen this one with an audience. It just never kind of clicked for me to do that. So yeah, The Beta Test, fantastic, and one I think people are going to continue to find as the years go on, much like they have with a film like Thunder Road.
Yep, 4 stars from me, and on the poster, so a high recommendation. And yeah, for me, he's got one of the best ever sort of double take looks I think I've ever seen. I think when he gets a piece of information at the end of the film and he's just like, "What?" And I was just like, it just ended me that particular moment. So yeah, no, a great choice.
And my number 6, this is one I got to see with you, and that is Pleasure. So originally going to be an A24 film, went to Neon, so it's about 20-year-old Bella Cherry who leaves her small town in Sweden for Los Angeles with the aim of becoming the world's next big porn star. But the road to her goal turns out to be bumpier than imagined. And yeah, this is a film where, again, it's most people, when this film comes out in one way or another, will probably see this film on a screener or on Mubi or something like that. It was just fantastic to watch a film like that with an audience where you can see them squirm. We've mentioned it before. Someone ran out of the screening about 15 minutes in. They couldn't quite handle a cum shot to the face to start that screening. So I'll always remember
this.
Which
led to my public screening of them basically stressing very clearly that this film is extreme and not for everyone, and if anyone feels uncomfortable, that staff will help them take them to a safe place. So yeah, I think that was directly informed by the press screening.
Yeah,
so.
And I love films like that just tap into something that kind of make you feel uncomfortable, and I just thought that performance was just incredible. And part of me was going in like, oh, it's going to be maybe a similar to Showgirls, whereas this one kind of leans into like the porn industry isn't glamorous whatsoever. It is like industrial estates in Los Angeles, and the positions people get into, kind of literally, I mean, there for sure. So there's a lot going on with a film like Pleasure, and it's one I can't wait to hear like a general audience reaction to, and to find out how the hell Neon are going to release this film. As I maintain, it will get a rollout in Los Angeles and New York, get really high screen averages, and then you've just kind of got to hope for the best of when it comes to screeners.
Yeah, because I think the reason it moved to Neon apparently was that A24 were getting a bit twitchy and looking to release an R-rated cut, but apparently Neon are committed to releasing an NC-17 version, which will extremely limit the box office revenue they get, but clearly they feel there is enough artistic merit in the film that it deserves to be seen as the director intended, which is a good thing. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to see. Coming soon, as you would say. So for me, at number 10, Promising Young Woman, because I just remembered because I saw it would have been like February 2020 when I actually saw that. So
I feel we need to give a shout out to what knocked it off the top 10 at the last possible
it was a late edition of film I just saw a couple weeks ago, and that was actually The Humans. I thought it was fantastic, and actually the scariest A24 film of the year. Not Lamb, not anything else. The Humans, but sadly just knocked out at the very, very last second by Promising Young Woman, because that one was a 5-star film for me. At number 9, it's Ryosuke Hamaguchi's Drive My Car, a nearly 3-hour long film based on Haruki Murakami short story. Short story turned into a 3-hour film. It sounds like something that Peter Jackson would do, but no, it's an interesting meditation on loss, grief, jealousy, etc. It's about a man who discovers his wife is having an affair, but she dies before he can confront her, and then he's directing a play, and the person who she was having an affair with comes in for one of the lead roles, and you sort of wonder where it's going to go. Is he going to sort of toy with the guy? Is he going to humiliate him? Is he going to get his revenge? But then they kind of develop an interesting friendship, and it's just a really, really interesting, well played out film, which at no point feels like a 3-hour film. It just flies by, and it was just a fantastic film. That one. Did you catch that one?
No, I started watching the screener, but the screener went before I got the chance to finish it, and it was one of those ones like the cinema times never quite worked out with what I was up to that time. So I'm kind of hoping I'll maybe get the chance to catch it in January. I feel like it's a film I really want to see in the cinema. I think, at that sort of length of time, especially subtitled, it's always a bit more challenging to watch something like that at home. So
yeah, I definitely do find that unless I am I'm reviewing it for during the film festival, I would normally prefer to watch the subtitle films on the big screen, because the temptation for distraction, stuff like that, is all too great at home. But I think, given that it's done really well at the critic screenings in terms of awards and stuff like that, I think there's definitely enough shout that it should maybe get another push at cinemas before, say, like the BAFTAs and Oscars, hopefully. Number 8, Malignant, which I discussed earlier, a film which is just completely insane but totally leans into it. And this was the sort of the one for me from James Wan in between Aquaman that he did. So totally, utterly crazy. Doesn't work for everyone, but totally worked for me. Number 7 was Sound of Metal, which we discussed a lot on this time last year, but seeing it on the big screen just confirmed how great a film it was. And I loved Lionsgate's commitment to releasing this film with completely sort of captioned and stuff like that. Not just some screenings, but all screenings were captioned, which was great. Number 6, Spider-Man No Way Home, a film which, as a Spider-Man fan, I was a complete sucker for. Yes, it's total fan service, but I think it was fan service which helped to grow the character, and so therefore it was maybe slightly more earned than other fan service films this year, which I still technically fell for because I gave Ghostbusters Afterlife 4 stars as well. So yeah. But we've done a whole episode on Spider-Man No Way Home, so you can listen to our full thoughts there. So it's time to go top 5, back and forth. So Lee, what have you got at number 5?
So it's out now in cinemas. So if you're listening to this, you can go along and see it. And that's Titane. So the less you know, the better going into this film. So following a series of unexplained crimes, a former firefighter is reunited with his son who has been missing for 10 years, which is a complete huge understatement about this film. I know people are familiar with the film as the film where the woman fucks the car. That happens.
That's The Counselor by Ridley Scott.
Yeah, that happens within the first few minutes, but the way this film pushes you and surprises you and the performances, I mean, I'm really hoping Vincent Lindon gets some sort of Oscar nomination or recognition, for this film. I think he puts in one of the most fantastic and believable performances in a quite crazy and absurd situation. So yeah, I'm not going to say too much about this because it's just rolled out today, and I'm just desperate to hear people's takes on it, and I think it's going to be something special. And obviously it did a bit of a disappointing box office in America, but this is a film like Raw. If you're lucky enough to see it in the cinema with an audience, you're in for a treat. But people will continue to find this film as it kind of rolls out over the years, and word of mouth comes. And I'm sure there'll be a slight perversion in people of like, I want to go check out the car fucking movie, but what they'll get instead is something that will truly shock and surprise and just deliver performances that you just didn't know were possible, and you're just so grateful that someone like Julia DeConeran can put out a film where you go, wow, someone actually gave her money to make the film that she wanted to make. And I know people have said things about like The Matrix Revolution, oh, that was the film they wanted to make. Titane is the film someone wanted to make and completely got free reign to do, and that's the type of film that I think we should celebrate.
Yeah, I wasn't entirely all that hot on Titane. I think the problem was that this was after London Film Festival, and I was like worried that it was going to get completely ruined for me, so I ended up renting it on US iTunes. And yeah, maybe this is one of those ones where I think I'd probably needed to see it with an audience, because I don't know if it's just me, but I wasn't all that shocked by it. Maybe I was expecting something slightly different, but yeah, didn't totally work for me. But perhaps in the gap between now and New Year, I might catch it on the big screen at the Belmont and see what an audience reaction does to help elevate it, perhaps.
Yeah, it's a shame you didn't enjoy it that much, but maybe you were just missing seeing it in the cinema.
Exactly. Yeah. Always see these films in the cinema if you can. That's my lesson. I should have waited and seen. So for me, number 5, it is Pig, a film which, if you read the description of a truffle farmer has his pig stolen and he has to go into the city to get it back, sounds like the plot of a Liam Neeson film. Those expecting the fact that it also stars Nick Cage, perhaps you would go in with very, very low expectations. It is not the film that you think it is. Instead, it is one of the most beautiful, powerful sort of meditations on loss and grief in it. And it's Nick Cage's, I mean, people always say this, but it's Nick Cage's finest performance in donkey years. Pig years, perhaps. It's just absolutely superb. It's got one of my favourite scenes of the year, which is a scene just set in a restaurant where, we talk about how Liam Neeson would use his fists and stuff in order to get answers and destroy people. Nick Cage just very calmly, softly spoken, completely destroys a fellow chef, and it's just an absolute masterclass. And yeah, for me, easily one of the best films of the year. It opened the Edinburgh Film Festival, and it was easily one of the best opening films that they've had in many, many years.
Yeah, I was gutted. This one just missed my top 10. I loved it, and yeah, I agree with everything you said there. And that scene in the restaurant is just a tough watch, and that ending has really stuck with me.
Absolutely. So what have you got at number 4? So
I've gone at number 4. It was potentially one of my favourite films of the year up until the last couple of months, and that's Shiva Baby. So
I actually also have Shiva Baby at number 4.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. It's all about a college student who attends a family Shiva where she's accosted by relatives, outshined by sort of her ex-girlfriend, and face to face with her sugar daddy and his family. So it's one I went into kind of blind when I saw it earlier in the year. I think I got a screener copy, I shoved it on, and I was like, oof, this is the type of film I absolutely love, and I just found myself thinking about it a lot. And I rewatched it a couple of weeks ago, and it still stood up strongly for me. And it's one of these movies, we hear it a lot, where it's like the real and I've said it many times, I love movies that are horror movies that are not about horror, they're about human beings. And I think Shiva Baby, the way it's shot, the use of music, the performances, it plays out like a real life family horror. And it was just so many of the great performances, and Rachel Sonnett, Molly Gordon, they're just incredible in this movie. I cannot wait to see what Rachel Sonnett does next, and I want to see her stand up. And I just thought this was a film that I got really excited about, and I think it's one of these films where it's all about finding a film like this and just sharing it and telling people to check it out, because I know it just got like the smallest of cinema rollouts here, but you know, the fact it's on Mubi makes it nice and easy to say, oh my god, you should go check out this film and praise it. And I introduced my girlfriend to it a few weeks ago of like, oh my god, this is like one of the favorite films of the year. Ultimately it didn't end up being a shared experience, but I think ultimately it's all about those, you know, films like Shiva Baby. They rely on those word of mouths, and I think it's going to end up in a lot of top of the year lists, and I think people will hopefully try and seek it out or take out a Mubi subscription or a free 7-day trial of Mubi to check it out, because I think this film is going to become a bit of a cult hit.
Yeah, no, I was very surprised it didn't get more nominations at the Independent Spirit Awards. I thought this was just right up their street in terms of it, and I think, yeah, Rachel Sennett's performance is fantastic. And for me, it's like one of my favourite films of, was it 2019 or technically 2020? And then this one, I just got a soft spot for films where slightly annoying, self-centered Jewish characters make really bad decisions. I think it's about under 90 minutes as well, so the time just flies by. And yeah, it's just so tense. And yeah, like you say, a lot of it is like shot like a horror film, and yeah, it's an incredibly uncomfortable but hilarious and rewarding viewing experience that, yeah, more people should hopefully find out about it, and hopefully podcasts like this and stuff highlighting it at the end of the year, people will be I think it's like one of the ones that it says, oh, you know, people say, oh, I'm trying to catch up on stuff before the end of the year, what should I watch? And I think probably one of the easily, you know, Shiva Baby, one that I would mention is one that people maybe didn't get the full chance to see. I think when it came back out in UK in June, I think I don't think it was like in like 2 cinemas or something in the UK, maybe a couple of shows at the Prince Charles, but then basically just on Mubi. So yeah, get yourself a Mubi subscription, 7-day free trial at the very least, watch it, and then yeah, hopefully you'll find enough stuff in order to take out full subscription. Other film streaming services are available.
Yeah, it randomly showed in a few cinemas in London, and the only Scottish cinema was one in Dundee, which was...
Yeah. I did consider, I thought, that's an hour on the train, maybe. Yeah, but ultimately, no, never happened. So we'll come back to you because number 4 was the same. So number 3.
I've gone with David Lowry's The Green Knight, the story of the Arthurian legend, the Green of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight as sort of King Arthur's reckless and headstrong
Sir
nephew.
Gawain, not Sir Gawain, as I thought it was until we actually saw the film.
Yeah, so the story of sort of King Arthur's reckless and headstrong nephew who embarks on a daring quest to confront the Green Knight, a gigantic emerald-skinned stranger and tester of men. So this was probably one of my most anticipated films of the year, and it's probably the one I think I've watched maybe the most. I've seen it 4 times now. Part of that is actually just due to sort of the way things fell. So like I rented it, and then you've got it for 48 hours and I've spent like $20 on it. I'm like, I'm going to watch this goddamn film again in the morning.
With that kind of outlay, you've got to get your money's worth.
Yeah. Then I watched it the following week. I watched it with my partner. Also, she didn't like that, and so we've had many a discussion and conversation about the Green Knight since. But I bought her the Green Knight board game from A24, so she likes Dungeons and Dragons. I like the Green Knight. You know, this could be the way that I could get her back into sort of the Green Knight's good books. And then I caught it in the cinema, which I felt really lucky to do. And you know, I think one thing I love about the film, you know, aside from it being a fantastic film, is it's filled with so many like small roles for character actors. directors and people involved in the industry, which is great for us on the A24 project because we can get all these really interesting stories about what it was like to be a giant, what was it like to work with Barry Keoghan as like one of the raiders in the movie, and kind of really dive into some of these kind of smaller scenes and performances. So yeah, I just think it was a film that I'm not big into Dungeons and Dragons and knights, etc. So but the film is really good, but that last 15-20 minutes as it plays out, of sort of like Gawain's kind of life post his encounter with the Green Knight is just stunning, and I found myself listening to that score just time and time again. A really, really special film, and for $15 million that they managed to make this film look as incredible as it did is a testament to great filmmaking, the Irish film industry, a great investment from A24, and it made its money back at the box office just as things kind of opened back up again. Fantastic. So yeah, I'm just really happy a film like The Green Knight exists, and I'm debating maybe catching it tomorrow as part of the Christmas season at the film house. So yeah,
it is a Christmas film. It's it's a Christmas film where Finchy turns up and to play a game which isn't throwing a kettle over a pub. But Ralph Ineson, between this and Macbeth, is now at 3 A24 films, tied with Oscar Isaac. Just needs one more, and then he's up at the top spot with Robert Pattinson. So I guess we'll have to see what comes out in the next couple of years. I really enjoyed that film, and I also have the game too. So we'll maybe have to do a Green Knight role-playing game over Zoom or something like that in order to do that. For me, my number 3 spot is, a new film from Denis Villeneuve. It's got a feature in the top 5 somewhere, and it's at number 3. It's Dune, or June, or however you pronounce it. But yeah, Dune Part 1. You only get Dune Part 1 once you're actually in your seat watching the film. So I wonder how many people were stung by that. But this is the first part of Frank Herbert's Dune, adapted by Denis Villeneuve, slightly more successfully, I'd say, but then David Lynch back in 1984. But for me, I just love I love his world building. I said it when, waxing lyrical many, many times about Blade Runner 2049. This is a world where I could live in for more hours, but this was about 2.5 hours. For me, I thought Timothée Chalamet, not everyone's cup of tea, but I think it worked for me. There was some great supporting turns. One of the biggest surprises I forgot to mention was hearing bagpipes suddenly during the middle of June, during one of the action sequences with the House Atreides army. Hans Zimmer's score was a delight, to the point where it nearly blew the speakers at the Belmont, I believe. All that bass. And so, it was just, I've watched it twice now on the big screen. Never got to see it on IMAX, sadly, but still seeing it on the big screen, it was an immense experience, and it ended at the perfect spot for me. I remember I went to India in March 2019 and read the book, and I think at that point it was meant to come out October 2019. It took a while to get here. I'd watched the David Lynch version, had no idea what was going on, read the book, had a better idea, and I think that, this is a much more faithful and successful adaptation to it, and I was very glad to see that they greenlit the Part 2 after the opening weekend, even though it was released on HBO Max in America. Although why they never actually filmed it all back to back in the first place, I have no idea. I know Blade Runner 2049 didn't make any money, but surely it must end up costing them more to bring everyone back a couple of years later. But at least they won't have like a It Part 2 problem where all the actors have aged horribly in the time and they have to start CGIing people to look younger again.
Yeah, obviously I wasn't as big a fan of Dune Part 1, but I'm completely open to having to reconsider the film once I watch it as a part of a double bill at the IMAX or something like that. So I'm really hoping it works as a two-piece, and that the first part, maybe I'll be like, oh, it was alright, and then, what payoff. So yeah, high hopes for Part 2. I'm still excited.
Yeah, it's Part 2 will be payoff for all the Zendaya fans who went along thinking that she was the main character, only to find out she appeared 2 minutes at the end. But never mind. So what have you got at the number 2 spot?
So it's no surprise that a new Paul Thomas Anderson movie ranks so highly. I caught it for the first time just the other week, and I'm going
But
to go
not
see.
at the number one spot.
No, I'm going to go see it.
Controversial.
Well, in a way, they're both controversial about the same thing. So, Licorice Pizza is without a doubt, in my top two films of the year. I mean, I just loved it. So it's set in San Fernando Valley in the 1970s as a 25-year-old kind of photographer meets a 15-year-old high school student, and they begin to form sort of a friendship that could potentially go more. So this was a film, as I mentioned,
disgusting.
Yeah,
absolutely disgusting.
We'll wait until you about Red Rocket. When I went to see Licorice Pizza, it had potential to be a disappointment. As I mentioned in our previous episode, I get so excited for Paul Thomas Anderson films, and sometimes that first screening is like, oh, it was good, but I need to see it again. And with this one, I love that world, and I know I said it, that it was kind of reminded me of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where I just was able to relax into that world and just watch these really interesting character actors do their thing and just go from one point to the other, kicking around Los Angeles. And I really enjoyed that world so much. And Alana Haim is fantastic. Cooper Hoffman. The one thing I keep seeing is like random, I know Paul Thomas Anderson can do this a lot, where there's so many deleted scenes in like the trailers and promos. Like, there's a promo that's kicking around just now where it has Cooper Hoffman's character farting in the back of Benny Safdie's car, and like they're trying to pass off like who actually farted. I was like, that wasn't in the film. So there's that, and there's that amazing like Bradley Cooper bit where like he smashes up the car windows. That's not in the film. So like I feel like I'm invested in this like digital DVD Blu-ray release of like seeing these special features and deleted scenes. So yeah,
you want an extended cut, don't you?
Yeah,
you want a 3-hour extended cut.
I just loved it and cannot wait to see it again, and to listen to the opinions of people that actually have media literacy when it comes to something like Licorice Pizza, because I think we could put that down as one of the biggest disappointments of the year, as well as I think a lot of people don't understand
all
films
online discourses.
All online discourses. I think most people actually don't have a clue of what they're talking about when it comes to films and are genuinely idiots. And yeah, I think it lets down a lot of the great film reviewers and critics out there, people like yourself, etc., people that are working on it as a career, people that are doing really great work, and then it's people like that bring the reputation down, and there's just too many idiots out there. And Licorice Pizza, it is a film that should not have a real discourse. It should have oh yeah, that's a funny little thing, and that should be about it. It shouldn't be your basis for your personality and your values and sort of that kind of potentially virtue signaling, and oh my god, I sound like I belong on Fox News, but people are idiots.
Yeah, no, I think all the online discourse for all films this year has been so tiresome. I think one of my biggest pet peeves is also people taking small snippets of films out of context to try and prove a point, but it's like, that's not the point. It's like when sadly it's like, in a couple of years ago now, like Marriage Story, that scene where they're fighting is like, if you've watched the film up to that point, it's an incredibly hard-hitting scene, but just taking that scene out of context, people were sort of laughing at it and turning it into memes, etc. So yeah, there's that. I mean, I was always debating when watching this film, which, is my number one film of 2022 at the moment, because technically I'm counting it as a 22 release, even though there's some previews on 35mm and 70mm this week. She says 20, she's 25 at the beginning. I was like, but is she? Is she just saying that to try and put him off? But then apparently I believe there's a bit later on where she says she's 28, and that's because Alana Haim is actually 28, and she forgot that she was playing the character and just gave her real age, but it kept it in. So yeah, I mean, no one was complaining about this stuff when Patrick Fugit was hanging around Kate Hudson and stuff in Almost Famous. That was seen as, oh, isn't it cool that he's getting off with all these girls and stuff like that. So it's tiresome and stuff, and it's a film, where plot-wise, one might argue that not much happens, but it's just about these two sort of burgeoning friendship / potential romance and stuff like that, and it's just an effortlessly charming film and stuff like that. And we kind of discussed it a lot on last week's episode. You can go to that for our full thoughts. But yes, no, it will feature at the moment. It will feature very highly on my next list for next year.
Yeah, can't wait to hear that list next year. I'll have to remind you that you saw it this year when it comes to next year. I don't want to hear the papers coming out and getting it scribbled down.
No, I will have to admit, I'm going to put it on there, Bob. So for me, number 2 is a film which I will honestly say I had not expected to be in my list, and that is Tick Tick Boom, which is probably one of the two films which I've watched the most. Actually, obviously, it was a Netflix release, so it was easier to rewatch it and stuff like that. But this was a film which I was completely taken by. Directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda. It's about playwright Jonathan Larson, who was struggling in New York in the early 90s to become a playwright and stuff like that. He'd written a musical, he was trying to get it made. He would go on to write Rent and stuff like that, but sadly died before it premiered on Broadway. But this is about him trying to get his first musical, Superbia, made, and it's based on a one-man show that he did about the failure of that musical and stuff like that. And it features Andrew Garfield in a fantastic performance. Just going to mention Under the Silver Lake. He's been fantastic all the time, especially in Under the Silver Lake. This is a performance which hopefully will get the same kind of acclaim, and hopefully people will go back and see that film as well. But I think he deserves Best Actor at the Oscars for me, because not only for this film, but for his dedication to the cause and for the marketing campaigns for this film, for The Eyes of Tammy Faye, and for Mainstream, where he kept up the pretense that he was not in Spider-Man No Way Home, and that he would have loved to have been involved, but he never got a call, etc., etc. The fact that he kept that going for so long, when it must have been so exhausting, that he wanted to talk about these films where he was great in, but everyone kept asking about that. So, but for me, the songs were incredibly catchy. I think it was an incredibly well directed piece. Lin-Manuel Miranda's, he's done shows like In the Heights and Hamilton, but this is his first directorial thing. I thought it was a great energy, great choreography and stuff like that. And for me, yeah, it was my unexpected find of the year. I think it was just fantastic. Have you caught this one yet?
No, not yet. It's kind of on my list of films to catch up with sort of in the next week when I'm off work on holiday. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And like you, I think Andrew Garfield's fantastic. It's great to see a lot of the love for him online the past week or so, since randomly for some reason people seem to be talking about him after seeing Spider-Man Away From Home. I can't think why.
I don't know, because he's not in it, he kept saying. There's so much evidence of him saying that he's not in it. I don't understand it.
I'm just so excited for him because I think he's almost blended a great career for himself, since he'll star in something like this, and then maybe
he's gone down the A24 path, like Robert Pattinson, Daniel Radcliffe. It's like shake off the shackles of these big blockbuster franchises, go do some A24 films, and you'll be happy. And
then there's love for films like Mainstream as well that we both really liked as well. So yeah, he's certainly doing the miles in terms of picking interesting projects, and they might not always be films I like or want to see, but I'm always keen to see what Andrew Garfield does next, because he is an absolute gem of a person and a star.
Oh, Mainstream, should that have been on my list? I think it technically kind of got dropped on Amazon Prime at some point this year. It was a great performance. But yeah, Mainstream might have to be an extra addition onto the list, but it will not take the top spot. So, Paul Thomas Anderson at number 2. What could have possibly pipped it to the post?
Red Rocket by Sean Baker. I've liked his previous movies. Tangerine, I think, is fantastic. Florida Project,
another Christmas movie.
Yeah, Florida Project I liked, but I didn't love as much as other people. And Red Rocket was one of those ones I liked. I didn't know too much going in. I know Sean Barker was like making a film in Canada, and he was like, right, COVID hit, and he wanted to make sort of a movie, something that was a bit more kind of controllable, sort of smaller cast. And I always just assumed like that was the film that he was making up in Canada at first when I heard about this. And then Red Rocket came along, and I got to London that day for the film festival. I made sure I had a ticket in the evening to go see it, and I didn't know what to expect going in. I think the only thing I'd seen was sort of the Simon Rex picture of him riding a bike, and that was all I knew. It was all about like an estranged porn star sort of going back to this small town in Texas, and wow, I just loved it. I think Simon Rex puts in without a doubt the best performance of the year. I just don't know where that guy gets the energy, and we've spoken about a lot of films where like it's great to see Andrew Garfield getting a lot of love and attention. Simon Rex was someone I really wasn't familiar with at all, and having kind of seen Red Rocket, kind of his history, what he's done, I'm just so excited that he's getting his moment in the sun. I just think it's just an incredible movie. Like Licorice Pizza, it was one of only the 2 films that I would give 5 stars to this year. It's just the fact it's such a relentless film, and like his character is the ultimate piece of shit. And what I find amazing is that you see discourse about like, oh my god, what's going on with this age gap thing in Licorice Pizza. Like Red Rocket came out on the same day, and it's about like a porn star trying to almost tap up a 17-year-old girl in Texas so that they can go away and make porn movies together, and this can be his big comeback. And like, I saw a thing where it was, the meme was like someone was just shooting arrows into the back of Licorice Pizza, and Red Rocket's like, I'm here, guys. I just cannot wait to see Red Rocket again. And I think one thing we've spoken about is the joy of the cinema experience. And last night I got an email from sort of the A24 mailing list where they do these things where the directors will write a little open letter, etc. And Sean Baker wrote one, and he was like, we're keeping this movie in the cinemas for 2 months, I think, before it'll maybe go to digital or something like that. So it gives people a chance to see this movie, and I think the fact that there's maybe a lack of discourse and conversation surrounding the film means that maybe not a lot of people are getting the chance to see it, and that's disappointing. But I think it's going to be a film that people will constantly find, and I think maybe by the time it comes to the UK, I know it says on like the FTA it's February 11th, and then Sean Barker says it's actually March 11th. Who knows? But I think by the time it gets out here, hopefully people are going to be excited to get the chance to see this movie. And I think we'll have some really interesting conversations to have about this movie. It's just genius.
So, unlike Titan, are you saying that I should definitely wait to see this one on the screen with an audience?
I think so. It's one of those things. Like, I just hope it gets a release. I'm kind of hopeful it'll get released at Glasgow Film Festival, and I think it'll go down well there. But yeah, it's just such a special movie. I can't even remember what my audience was like for it. I think they were kind of a bit not unsure, but I loved it.
Was that a festival theatre one?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Wow.
at like 9:00 at night. So yeah, and it's one of those things. Like, if you watch this, you're gonna have NSYNC's "Bye Bye Bye" stuck in your Spotify playlist for the rest of the year. So tread carefully.
Who doesn't have that on their Spotify playlist anyway?
Exactly.
So yeah, no, I think I will. I'll keep my powder dry on that one and wait for a public screening. Like you say, it's a bit confusing for the UK. Like you say, FDA's got 11th of February. He says 11th of March. If it is the 11th of March, then yeah, it's probably it's a good chance for the Glasgow Film Festival, given that they've done a lot of A24 films in the past, like Death of Dick Long, etc. So yeah, we'll have to see. But in terms of A24, sort of loathsome but utterly compelling lead characters, him or Howie from Uncut Gems.
Howie is like, he does his best. This guy is like, I've seen people, it's definitely very much a film about sort of the Trump era and like what it is to be a selfish man. And I saw a review where it was like, they might as well call this movie about like the privilege of white men. It's like, that's the point of the movie, for crying out loud. And yeah, like it highlights how people like that can succeed, and on a real macro level in a small town. And I'm desperate to watch again because there's just so much to get from it. And I would love to, we had Chris Bergeok, the co-writer, years ago on the A24 project, so I'm going to maybe try and slide into his DMs and see if I can get him back on, because I have so many questions about this movie I want to celebrate with him.
Oh, absolutely. I guess we'll have to look forward to that one, hopefully. So I guess that just leaves me with my top spot. I wonder what film it could be. Any guesses?
Oh, I think I've had this one in the bag for a long time. It's got to be censored, doesn't it?
It has to be censored, yeah. I don't know what this says about the quality of films that have come out since the end of January, but it's been in the top spot since I saw it at Sundance, and it's remained there all the way. So yeah, Brianna Bailey Bond's debut feature film Censor, which follows the character of Enid Baines, which, if you actually take the letters of her name and rearrange them, it's Bide Insane, i.e. to remain insane. But that's a whole other theory you can listen to on another podcast of ours, by the way. So Enid Baines is a woman who lost her sister at a very young age, wasn't entirely sure what happened to her. She went missing in the woods, and was she killed? But they don't know. So now she works for a BBFC-like censor group who are censoring all the video nasties in the 80s. One day she comes across a film which sparks something in her mind, memories are unlocked, and she goes on a quest to try and find the truth about what happened to her sister at the cost of her own sanity, I think it's fair to say. This was just, for me, just the best debut of the year. It's the emergence of a fantastic British filmmaker with a really sort of unique voice. I thought the cinematography, score, everything was fantastic. Niamh Algar in the title role is amazing. I love horror films. I love films about films. So this sort of ticked every single box. It's got a fantastically smarmy performance, supporting return by Michael Smiley, who's great in everything as well. And yeah, just the chance to sort of speak to her about the film at Sundance as well was just fantastic. And yeah, it's been a film I've championed all year, and one of my highlights obviously was getting my 5-star review on the poster as well. And I very much look forward to the Second Sight limited edition Blu-ray release that comes out at the end of January. Even though I wasn't able to write one of the essays for the thing, I did email them, but they'd already basically finished working on it by the time I heard about it. So next time maybe. But yeah, no, my film of the year, hands down, Censor.
I think it's films like that. We kind of look at a lot of our top lists. Yeah, like there's predictable ones in there for myself. Like I could imagine a Licorice Pizza ahead of time, or maybe in The Green Knight making it into my top 10. But I think the rest of my 8, and probably likewise with a lot of yours, is we never saw these films coming. We were surprised by them. They kind of came under the radar. It might have been a 2 p.m. film at a film festival, or staying up on a late night movie on the chance that something might be good. I think I'm really glad that we've got such a nice mix of films in there. And, you know, I'm hopeful for next year as much as we've got films that we're anticipating. It's like, what are going to be these surprise films that we're going to get next year? And I cannot wait to see what those are.
Yeah, and actually looking back on it, well, there was a last minute switch out, but yeah, only 2 films which featured on both lists, which is fantastic to see. And yeah, it would have been interesting to go back and see what I would have written down as my top 10 most anticipated films of 2021, because I'm pretty sure they would not have been the 10 films which ended up on the list. And it's always nice when you find something new, or a new filmmaker, like you say, that you can find and be a champion of their work. And so yeah, so that's our top 10 films of 2021. Hopefully we've given you a few excellent films for you to search out. Yeah, pretty much everything you can get on PVOD, VOD, Mubi, Netflix, etc. So lots of things to be able to catch up on before the year is out. We'll be back in 2022. Of course, we've now done Licorice Pizza, so it's going to be interesting to see what our first film. It might actually have to be Scream on the 14th. I'm not sure if there's much out before that. But when we do Scream, we'll have to get Kim on. I expect she'll be wanting to come on to discuss that one, I'm sure. But we'll see you in the new year for lots of new films, and also for more episodes at the A24 project as well. So keep your ear out for those as well. So have a great end of 2021, and have a safe viewing experience in 2022.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.